Welcome to another episode of Brew Bandits as we've assembled the crew once again here in the Lakeview Brewing Station garage, as you can see. Yard tools behind us, trash items piled up, and most importantly, the home brewery.
It's good to be back, too.
It is.
We took a little time off, for the holidays.
Yes, some holidays.
Now we're in the new year, 2012.
2012, it's January as we're shooting this, and there's no snow outside because apparently...
But it's still cold inside.
Yeah. Cold in the brewery. As you can see, everyone's, I don't know, this guy's a bear. I think he's got a sweater vest underneath this, so he's staying nice and warm. Today we're brewing a beer called the Atrum IPA, which is a black IPA. Kevin and I actually wrote this recipe together just before the holidays, way back in probably October or so.
Yeah, it's not as, it's a little bit less on the IBUs, which are the International Bittering Units, which is how hoppy your beer is. But it's a great flavor. It's got that roasty barley flavor to it, kind of like a little chocolate, but hoppy. And
this one is actually ours is currently a little more brown than it is black. So we're going to attempt to correct that today as we move forward, because we're trying to do a clone today of, more specifically, the Otter Creek Alpine Black IPA.
Right. So.
Yep, and again, you can always find all the recipes, outtakes, and good stuff on the Facebook page. We're on facebook.com/brewbandits. You just look up Brew Bandits and hit search as well in Facebook, and you can get all the nice recipes that we've done in previous shows.
We got a big show for you today. We're going to talk about the topics of mashing and sparging. Since the last episode shot here at the Lakeview Brewing Station, I've moved to the all grain. We're 100% grain here now, so it's changed the process a little bit. We're going to focus on that today, and that's going to be the topic of the show, mashing, sparging. We got beer facts with Travis that he's going to be throwing at us. We got a lot of great information.
Different things, talking about batch sparging and fly sparging and all the different type of mash temperatures that you're going to want to do to change up your type of beer. It's a little bit more specific.
It is a little bit more specific. So
that would explain what sparging means.
We're taking it to the next level.
Find out too what Vorloffing does too.
Exactly. So let's get this started, and we'll start by taking a look at the recipe today. So we'll take a look at the recipe, and then we'll head right into it, get our water up to temperature, and start down the path. So what we have here is a grain mill, and this is a big part of when you go to the all grain setup. You need to figure out how you're going to crush this stuff up. This is one of the few things in this brewery that I have purchased at full price because there's no way to build your own really. And you got to absolutely have it. I got this. It's a Schmidling malt mill like this. It's 2-roller style. If you look at it in there, you can see the 2 rollers. They roll together. And they crush the grain. They're knurled. What is it called? Curled? Knurled? What this is called?
Got texture.
Got texture to it. Got some texture to it.
Looks like it's waffled.
Waffled. So you can see there's the residue of the grain that's on there now. I have to take a brush and clean it when you're done. But this sits right on top of your bucket like this. And then this drill I attach to here and spin it. And it spins the grain mill. Now, there's also a handle crank to do it by hand for when the battery runs out. And but this is pretty much it. This is a Schmidling malt mill, and this is what allows us to crush the grains at home.
Schmidling.
All right, grains. This is the base malt that we're using today, American 2-row. So we've got a bunch of milling to do. We got our mill set up here. It's got a drill attached to it so that we can not have to crank it by hand when the battery runs out. Kevin gets a little bit more of a workout here today than he thought he was going to, because he's our crank man. But we're going to dump the crank man.
Making that public now,
That's the last little bit of the base malt, which is an American 2-row. And then here is the other grains that we're using. You can see this nice black color that we have here. This is going to give us, this is a Carafa Special 2 and Crystal 60 are the 2 grains that we're adding to this base malt today. And again, the full recipe is on the Brew Bandits Facebook page. So now we squeeze the trigger on this drill.
Beer fact, 1978, our favorite president, Jimmy Carter, legalized home brewing. I was born in 1979. I don't think there's a coincidence. Beer fact.
All right, so today part of what we're going to be talking about is the sparge and mashing. And the first thing you have to do is get your water up to temperature. And depending on your location, the time of year, what other environmental factors you have going on, the temperature. Was this sitting outside in the garage all night and it was 34 degrees? Is your grain in the garage? Is your grain somewhere cold? All these things affect your temperatures. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to put this water into here, add grain to it for the mash, and we want it to settle out and hit 153 degrees.
Right.
That's the number we're going for.
Because that's the temperature that with the mash temps that you're looking for, you want depend on the style of beer you're making is what the temperature you're looking for here. Mitch is doing 153 and he wants to keep that at that temperature
for the full hour. For the
full hour that he wants to do.
So right now,
and just as someone who doesn't know, I mean, with a mash, it's just literally putting the grains in the hot water and letting it sit.
And the reason why we're putting it in the hot water and letting it sit is because we're trying to change over the starches from the grain to sugars, because that's what, when we go to ferment, that's what turns into alcohol, is the sugar.
Exactly, and we're going to explain a little bit more of that process coming up in a second, but right now what we're looking for is based on the calculations for the temperature in this garage, the temperature outside, the temperature of everything I got. I need to be around 173 degrees so that when I dump this hot water in here, dump the grain into it, it'll all settle out. The grain will be cold, everything will be cold, it'll just even out at 152 degrees. If I don't hit that, I can do two things. If I'm too low, which let's hope that doesn't happen, we can add more hot water, or if I'm too high, we can stir with the cover off to kind of reduce it. So what we're going to do right now, this water is at temperature. I'm going to run this off into the bucket, and we're going to mash in just a second. So in this brewery too, we don't have an individually fired hot liquor tank. We use these coolers to keep our water cold, or our water hot. And so everything we have to heat up, all water has to get heated up in our boil kettle here. So this is the boil kettle. We're gonna put the hot water in here. This is the mash is gonna happen in here. And then we're gonna heat more water up for the sparge. And it is gonna go in the second one of these I have that's set up as our hot liquor tank.
Mitch, how many gallons is this?
This is a 5-gallon vessel. So right now we're putting 3.5 gallons worth of water into it. We're going to add the grain to it as well. With this, I can probably push upwards of this recipe has 10 and some change, 10 pounds of grain and some change. I can push upwards of probably 15 pounds of grain. So if I was trying to make a big 5-gallon beer, this is not big enough for a 10-gallon
batch.
For a 10-gallon batch. Neither is my brew pot. So at this point, we're limited 5 gallons with this setup. All right, here we are now. This is a gravity-based system that I use. So as you can see, the mash is going to sit at this level. Up here on the shelf is where my hot liquor tank is going to go, and then the brew pot will sit right here when we're all done. We've removed the brew pot just to shoot this right now. So this has got the water in. We put the water in here. It's been in here for a couple minutes just to kind of warm the vessel up a little bit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the dough in. And basically the dough in is when you add the grains to the water. You don't want to do it too fast because you don't want dough balls to form. So we got our charismatic brew spoon / mash paddle that we've got here, and we're gonna open this up and start doughing in. juiciest part of the dough, and you can see this, you know, that kind of balls up a little bit. The grain naturally wants to go together and create this kind of soupy. So we're going to kind of slop it around here and get it all nice and happy, work together. Pretty confident that there's no balls of grain anywhere. Every time we pull it up, you can see the black in there. That's from the Carafa Special 2. That's what's going to give us a lot of our color today. It's going to give us most of our color. And there's a lot of flavor that's coming with that too. Okay, go ahead. Now, once everything's all in here, we're pretty confident that we've doughed in. All our balls are broken up, our dough balls that have formed. We've beat everything down. We've stirred it up. We take our handy Brew floating thermometer and we go whoop, like that.
Drop it in.
Close the lid.
Drop it in.
And wait. Now, we need to wait like 5 minutes. We need to see how the temperature settles out in here. If we hit our temperature that we're looking to mash at of 153 degrees, we're going to be all set. If it's higher than that, we're going to stir, open it up and stir it around to kind of let more heat out. If it's lower than that, we're going to boil some water. But I got to tell you, I'm a professional at this, so it won't be lower. It'll only be higher because I err on the side of caution when doing my calculations. It's then going to sit in this vessel for the mash for 1 hour. We're going to stir it every 10 minutes. Mashing and mashing temperatures are very important in the all grain brewery, and Kevin is going to now explain more about mash temps and how they work.
So now here I am talking about mash temps in regards to mashing. The temperatures you want to stay between are 148 and 158 degrees. And what you're doing when mashing is you're converting starches to sugars. And when you do that, when you're fermenting the sugars into alcohol. At the lower temperature range, 148 to 152, you're going to produce a more lighter beer, because you're going to be fermenting out more sugars in that. Between, say, the temperatures of the higher end temperature, say 155 to 158, is going to be a more full-bodied beer. You're going to want to it's just going to have less sugars in there, because you're not going to be converting starches to sugars. In the middle range, you'll have just a medium bodied beer.
All right, we're back. We're going to check our temperatures. It's been a minute or two here, letting things kind of settle out, and pull the thermometer out. We are at 152 degrees. This is not lying for television, ladies and gentlemen. That's how confident in the temperatures I am here at the Lakeview Brewing Station. So now we close this. We start the timer. 1 hour. Every 10 minutes, I'm going to open this thing up, stir it, make sure my temperatures are where they're supposed to be. This is the mash. It's all happening in here. Starches are turning to sugars, and that's going to turn into fermentables. It's love.
Here's a beer fact for you. 4,000 years ago in Babylon, it was customary after a wedding for the father-in-law to provide as much beer as the groom wanted for an entire month after the wedding. This should have carried over to now. All we took was the word honeymoon because it was mead and it was a honey-based beer. That's not fair. From now on, father-in-laws, get your wallets out. We want a month worth of beer. Beer fact.
All right, so the mash is over now, and so what we're looking at here, we got our hot liquor tank right above Kevin's head here. It's filled with water that we heated up. It is about 178 to 180 degrees, and we're going to sparge with this. And as Kevin will explain fly sparging and batch sparging in just a little bit, we're actually fly spargers here at the Lakeview Brewing Station. So what's going to happen is water from this tank is going to sprinkle through this little sparging arm that I've got here over the grain bed. It's going to filter down and then run out at the same speed. Before we can get to that, we need to set the grain bed, and the process of setting the grain bed is called vorloffing. And so what I've got here in the kettle is just a regular growler, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up. I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to open this up and I'm just going to let it run until it runs relatively clear and free of particulates. You can see particles and pieces of grain that have got underneath the false bottom, swirling around in there. What we're going to do is we're going to run off probably, more of this. You see the grain pieces floating in there? This is what we're trying. We don't want this to end up in the beer. We want to set this grain bed, and so we're going to take this now, and then what we do with this is we just kind of dump it back over. And I'm going to dump it kind of on this because I'm going to let it kind of run off this. I don't want it to channel the grain bed that we're trying to set right now. So we're going to run this back here like this, and then we're going to run off some more of this. And this sets, again, the grain's in here floating in the water because it's been mashing. What it does is it kind of, as it runs out full speed, it kind of sits on the false bottom. It's slowed down a little bit, I can see, and it's running a little clear. There's less grain particles floating in this second one. That's visible.
And the grain bed just creates a natural filter.
Exactly, that's what we're doing. It's just creating a filter so that then when we sparge, the water will run off, rinse the grain. We're going to put this back in here now. And that looks pretty clear already, pretty free of particles. Some people spend a lot of time on this process. They run it and keep doing this until it's really, perfect or whatever. I'm good with this. I have a screen on my boil kettle anyway, so basically what we do now is we hook up, we put the pot back into place here, and we're going to run the water from here, sprinkle it over the grain bed, collect it in here, and Kevin is going to explain a little bit more about the type of sparging, the two different main types of sparging that you have to choose from as a brewer.
And now we're going to discuss sparging. Sparging is the washing of the sugars from the grains to get all those fermentables out. Today we're going to be using a method called fly sparging. That's what Mitch uses. And what it is we're going to be continuously running water over the grains to extract all those sugars from there. And those will be running into the brew pot. Another method of sparging is batch sparging. And it's 175 degree water dumped in a pail, and then it just runs off. There's no continuously water rushing over it. And that is not considered the most efficient way, but it's a great way to get the sugars from that.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn the water on here. Water's going to sprinkle from the hot liquor tank through the sparge head onto the grain bed. It's going to filter down through, rinse. The hot water is going to stop the conversion process because the water is hotter than what's in here. It's going to then rinse the sugars from the grains, and it's going to slowly run out into the boil kettle here. So matching the output of water to the input of water is the key to this process. It needs to take 1 hour to get a good conversion. You're trying to rinse those. It's like taking a shower and getting soap off you. Imagine if you got all soaped up, soap in your hair everywhere, and then got in the shower and rinsed it off you. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to rinse that soap off, aka the sugars, slide it into the pot, then we have fermentables.
And what again? How much water did we have up here?
For this recipe, we had 5 gallons of water in here.
Okay. And there was 3.5 gallons in here?
3.5 gallons here, 5 gallons here, which is...
And you have to add more water because obviously the absorption from the grains is going to take place. So it's going to take partial of that 3.5 gallons that's already in here.
And there's a calculation for it. It's about 1 1/4 per pound of grain. So for this recipe, I calculated that I needed about 8.5 gallons of water. Right? 3.5 plus 5, is that?
8.5.
There you go.
Beer facts. Witten Brewing, no one can do math. So we had about 8.5 gallons of water. That's to hit our pre-boil target volume, and that is I'm looking to have about 6 3/4 gallons of water to boil in this pot when it comes time, because as we boil, it'll evaporate. We'll actually lose some volume.
We'll be down around 6 gallons.
We'll be down around 6. So today we're using two different types of hops for this. We're using 1 ounce of Columbus at 60. We're using 2 ounces of Cascade at 30, and then we're using another ounce of Columbus at 10 as our finishing hops. Columbus and Cascade, both hops that can interchange between bittering and aroma. So what I'm doing, I buy my hops in bulk by the pound from a farm out in Washington State. And so what I've done here is I've measured out my 1 ounce of Columbus. Actually this batch of Columbus, you see it's kind of broken up leafy. It hasn't held up as well to the freezing and everything. It's kind of come apart a little bit. The Cascade is more of the full hop that you get here anyway. So we've got our 1 ounce here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna add this at the start of the boil. This is at 60, 2 ounces of the Cascade at 30, and then another. So we're gonna be around 85 IBUs for this, and when you're talking about an American-style black IPA like this, you want your IBUs, which is your International Bitterness Unit, to be probably around, I would say, 50 to 70. This is a little high for the style, but I also like a very hoppy beer anyways myself. So I'm about 85 on this recipe right now, which is about 15 more than what it should be according to the BCJP.
What does that stand for?
I don't know. Beer judging something. I don't know. Some people that are smart and know how to drink beer. So, according to style, this is what we're looking to hit.
Beer fact, 1892, bottle caps. First invented where? USA, Baltimore. Beer fact.
So we're up to temperature now, 212 degrees. The sparge is over. And what we're going to do real quick is just do our first hop addition. I got a little hop bag here that I use in a little ring with a hook on it so I can hook this on the handle here. So Kevin's going to pour this first addition of hops into the bag. All right, and there we go. We're going to put this now in here, the first hop addition. We'll submerge these into the boiling wort like this. They're in there now, and then this little handy contraption that I built just hooks on the handle over here. I don't want the bag to hit the bottom and scorch the bag or anything like that. So now we got a nice open hole for later hop additions. We can just put the hops in, and we don't have to pull the bag up out of the boiling liquid and hold it with our fingers and kill ourselves. So now we boil for 1 hour. We get a hop addition at 30, 2 ounces of Cascade, then we got another hop addition at 10. So in the meantime, we're going to do what all good brewers do on a brew day. We're going to drink some beer.
Beer fact. Beer can kill you many ways. One way, it can drown you. London, 1814, St. Giles Parish, 320,000 gallons of beer explodes, flooding the streets. Most people get away, but if you owned a basement apartment in that time, you is probably drowned. Beer fact. All right, so we got the hops in. Right now we're just going to go through the normal brewing and boiling and everything we've done before. In the interest of saving time, you're going to watch us do this pretty darn fast. So we're going to speed it up and get down to the tasting.
I've always fancied myself sped up.
That's true. We're much more attractive.
Now
All right, time to do a little tasting here. And what we've all got in our glasses is a little bit of this Atrum IPA. Once again, to just recap, Kevin and I wrote this recipe together. This is our second collaboration, which is kind of a fun thing to do in brewing, is to write a recipe with someone else and
kind of have fun with it.
Yeah. Create something that's different. We're trying to go for that American Black India Pale Ale style. And right here, I've got the tasting notes from the beer judging. It should be medium, high to high in hop bitterness, and have a pretty high alcohol content, balanced with a medium body. It have a moderate degree of caramel malt character, strong dark roasted malt flavor and aroma, and a very high astringency and a high degree of burnt roasted malt character. So we should be original gravity somewhere around 1056, 10 to 1075. On this one, this original gravity was about 1065.
Right. But pretty much what he's saying right there, what that means is it tastes good.
It tastes real good. So you're going against that. Like Otter Creek right now has got that black IPA, the Alpine Black. Greg Noonan from the Vermont Pub and Brewery was really the
yeah, he had started something. Started that way back when up at Vermont Pub and Brewery.
Yeah, their Black Watch IPA is really the one that got it started. And this style of beer just recently got added. This is a very new, relatively new style of beer as far as beers go.
Yeah.
So, very cool right now. So
it's been around, but just got more popular, I guess you'd say, in the last few years.
You actually have commercial breweries brewing it for production, so which is a big part of it. So let's all take a drink here and. Travis, hops?
Yeah, that's the first thing that hits you. That is hoppy. That stays on the tongue.
It stays
right with you. That roasted characteristic, that just pops right out there. That's a good beer. That's a good Columbus.
And I would say it is a medium body beer. I wouldn't say it's overly thick or overly, or too light. It's just right in the middle.
No, you can feel the alcohol content in the taste, definitely. It's not overpowering though. It's nothing like too heavy or it looks dark, it looks thick, but it's not. It's not thick.
Right, and it's almost this one here. Color-wise, we're almost a little brown. We're not black as the night, Yeah,
when you hold it up to the light, you can get that just a little bit of brown on the edge.
Reddish tinge
on the edge, with a little tinge, yeah.
But overall, this one, good lace. You can see on my glass here the head lines foaming up and holding against the edge of the glass. That's what we look for. There's a good body. There's a good bite to it. You can smell those hops in there. When you take it, half of the tasting experience is what you smell. Ooh. And these, at 85 IBUs, this is pretty heavy.
Stellar. I think it's stellar.
Stellar.
Yeah.
I appreciate the word stellar from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very nice. Very nice of you to agree with me on something.
And while we're sitting here, we might as well save us the trouble of getting up and just wrap this show up right while we're here, because
might as well be done.
Pretty much done.
At 6.7% alcohol.
I guess we're pretty much done.
We're not moving anywhere anytime soon. So once again, head online to the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/brewbandits. You can find this recipe. This is once again is our version of the Otter Creek Alpine Black IPA. We call it the Atrum IPA, and Atrum is Latin for black. That's Kevin's name for it. As we wrote this recipe together, and of course,
only Latin word I know.
It is the only.
And full episodes are up on YouTube. Just go ahead and go to YouTube and type in Brew Bandits. You'll find us.
Oh, hold on. We got notes from the producer.
Oh.
That's the thing about filming a show like this.
You not done yet?
Notes?
We got notes from our producer. He reminds us that we need to mention the Facebook page, the YouTube channel. We need to thank our sponsors, which include nobody at this time. So if you're out there, sponsor us. By the way, I'm repping my new, probably can't quite see the logo, the Fiddlehead Brewing Company. Just got started in Shelburne, Vermont here. The brewer was a former brewer at Magic Hat, so he's got a new thing going on. So we'll give them a quick plug. You can find them on Facebook as well. And next time, we're going to be at, is it 38 Stowe Street? We're going to be up
I think we'll be at the 38 Special down there.
We're going going to be
Waterbury.
We're going to be at Kevin's place, and we're going to discuss a couple of things, including cooling the wort and hot break. So we'll get into a couple of different topics, and we'll brew a beer. What do you think? You have any ideas what we're going to brew when we're there?
I have a couple ideas.
There's a couple of.
We don't know yet.
We don't know. He's got a couple of hot ones right now.
I'm kind of what you call willy-nilly. I'm just kind of had that going on at that time.
In addition to being willy-nilly,
We got people knocking at the door here. I don't know what the heck that's all about.
folks just trying to get in. It's another episode of Brew Bandits.